I have a question on liberalism. So, do you think, like, in relative comparison to, like, I guess the feudalistic forces or whatever, I guess that's what, like, Marx describes, that liberalism was trying to encourage more property, but wasn't it? I mean, wasn't the argument by, like, Adam Smith and by other philosophers that if you leave the market, kind of, you know, if you have capitalism, if you have open access to markets and the right to work whatever you want to do, eventually leaving the market open and free, you'll have like more property indirectly being produced. Like, they weren't trying to, like, distribute property like the socialists or anything. That they were more interested in just.
Well, really, I think normally the discussions have to do with context, and the context of Smith, specifically of Adam Smith, was in 18th century a context of a corporate order, and he was very revolutionary. I mean, because he thought in a liberal order, but again this corporate order, because this corporate order didn't generate conditions for better human life. Smith did not see the modern liberal system with modern markets, etc. It was only the first stage of the industrial revolution in England, but the order in the world, we are a corporate order, more estamental order, more than.
So, but like, if, for example, in that case, if Adam Smith, like, if he saw, like, a merchant or something, and he made his money, he's very wealthy because he made his money selling cheaper goods through capitalism. Like, Adam Smith wouldn't be saying, let's take some of his property and give it to someone who's poor. Adam Smith would say, well, the system was set up for everybody, and so if you don't benefit, that's, you know, you didn't put in enough labor, or you didn't work hard enough, or you just didn't, you don't deserve someone else's property. I mean,
I think what like when Patricio was talking about just the concept of property, it's the importance of property, not the means to it. So, I mean, yeah, they talked about the means a lot, like John Locke and Adam Smith, but the importance of property and the way government should act in accordance to defending people's rights to property, like that's what he was talking about, the importance of property, not the means to it or why.
Yeah.
Or how.
We can go to the other text of the socialism. Yeah, who has socialism?
That's me.
You have socialism.
Okay. All right. Okay. Should we finish up liberalism or no? Did we finish liberalism already, or the discussion? Because I didn't mean to cut in.
No, it's good. We have enough, or you had more to.
It's fine. Property. I'll put a note in my thing.
No. Yes. I'll finish.
Well, okay. I guess you also talked about chronology of liberalism. So we talked about the formation period, which was mid-1700s to mid-1800s. And then, let's see. Okay, and then there's a crisis at the end of the 1800s because liberalism as a movement, you're right, is threatened due to unsettled social problems, growing social division, and a lack of social justice in Latin America. And it's not until late 1900s to the turn of the century that neoliberalism emerges as a concept. There's no real global program, but there is an emphasis to order of competition and as states being central to regulation. Let's see. I guess those are important things. There's also, you read about diffusion and contents in Latin America. Do you want me to go into that?
Yeah, maybe the question, like with enlightenment, do you see ties with the reforms or with the conditions for reforms in Latin America after liberalism? So you have the legacies of liberalism in Latin America. And you have now movements into reforms. Then do you see ties? Do you see relations? Do you see important legacies of, yeah?
I think so. I think, especially at the end of your paper, you wrote about sort of a balance. Liberalism left some good legacies, positive ones, and those would be Latin America sort of projected into the international economy, foreign trade, external investments. There's economic growth now, and it was better prepared for globalization because they had already entered into this international scheme.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there were some negative legacies that probably hindered reforms.
Yeah.
You wrote about sort of, well, in the dependency theory mindset that liberalism left Latin America sort of on the periphery and very dependent on foreign countries in terms of foreign capital and their technologies that were being imported.
Yeah.
So while it was a good thing, it probably also left them very dependent.
Yeah, yeah. And maybe in the political systems too, do you identify something special?
Let's see.
For politics?
Well, you wrote actually something interesting that in the Latin American case, liberalism didn't encourage political participation. Instead, that governments were comprised of these small elites, each with its own sort of variation on authoritarian and centralized and very paternalistic government. So, I don't know, I guess that would be sort of a negative.
Yeah, but they introduced at the same time many new institutions. New institutions. The fundaments of the democracies came from liberalism in Latin America. For example, the classical liberties, the classical, of citizen proprietors, the liberty to associate, to participate in the political order as citizens. These ideas came from, Enlightenment and liberalism. And liberalism introduced, you are right, I agree, and the text is clear in this. There were political order without, they don't improve enough the participation of all of the majorities. But important is too that they introduced rules, and with the time, these rules were very important for the modernization of the political systems. I mean, for example, in a country, they introduced the rule of political competition to have access to the power. And in this time, in this context, when they introduced that, of course, only two people had the possibility. But with the time, with the new movements, social movements, they had the possibility to integrate into these rules. And that was very important for their democracy.